Good rising, brethren. This is Big Judah coming to you guys in California. Before I begin, give all praise to the Most High Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother. Who is wisdom? Who is the Holy Spirit? Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. I pray the Most High blesses this lesson this evening, gives us more knowledge and understanding of the events of the past, in order to understand events that are currently happening on the earth, so we get a much better understanding of the things that are soon to come on the earth. Brethren, that intro that just kind of morphed over time that I have here on the video is taking on a new life. Having to understand the past to get a much better understanding of the things that are happening right now so we can get a better view of what's to come is so true. And I never really thought of that intro. It just kind of just had to take a life of its own. And that's exactly what is going on. The Most High is giving us back our history, but I've been on a spree of purchasing some really important books. And I want to say thank you to the nation, and I'm going to need your continued support because in a couple of these videos you're going to see some books that were hell of expensive. There might have only been one or two on the internet that we could find, and they're going to be giving us back our history, giving us back our understanding, and how deep this rabbit hole goes. And now you're going to see even more so why they want us fighting so much with each other, why they always want us at each other's throats and not looking at the enemy and the things that the enemy has been doing, not only to us, but the knowledge and understanding that they've taken from the entire world. And you're going to see the scriptures coming to life. Let's get into this first book real quick. Prehistoric Central America by Townsend. You're going to see some proof about how the Greeks were well aware of a land to the west 1,000 years before Christ. That there was actually people like the Phoenicians who had already traveled to the so-called Americas back then. Remember now, we talked about this we did a video about the fourth part. The other nations were aware and they were able to go to the three parts. But the Most High did not allow them to go to the fourth part. Those were holy lands, sacred lands that were given to the Most High's chosen people. And this book is confirming that the other nations knew about these lands, knew about these fertile lands, these beautiful lands, but they were not allowed to go there. But see, when you look at history, they make it sound as if they had no idea that these lands were there and that Columbus just happened to bump into them. And when he got there, he didn't realize what he had found, what he had discovered. These people knew about these lands, and they knew that they were not allowed to come to them. But they also knew that these lands were inhabited by so-called black people. They knew that too. And they're going to tell you right now, these Greeks were writing these things in books a very long time ago. They were talking about things that they had heard, because they weren't allowed to come, but they're going to give you a lot of information of the things that they really did know. And this just shows you how the Gentiles are going to be saying that our fathers have inherited lies. You're about to see some stuff. You're going to see stuff in this video, but some of the ones that we're going to be coming are going to be absolutely mind-blowing, because some things that we never really thought of are going to be exposed. We knew that all of these histories that we've been told have been lies, but now we're about to get even more understanding of how deep this rabbit hole goes. Starting right here with page 4. It says, indeed, it was not until the Romans just before the Christian era, had subdued all the borders of the historic Mediterranean Sea, that free intercourse amongst the inhabitants prevailed. Up to that period, every people, as a rule, carefully guarded all knowledge of their own wealth and of their own acts and possessions from the rest of mankind, instead of making public expositions to attract the attention of the outside world to their useful achievements. And they sometimes passed laws for inflicting the severest punishments upon citizens who should reveal to the outside world the locations, nature, or extent or value of their possessions. See, they made it sound like, hey, it's all universal. We're all one people. That's what they set up their whole church, right? The Catholic Church. We're all together. We're all one people. But before that, these people were like, hey, if we got some information, don't be telling anybody. If we got some money, we got something here, don't be telling anybody. If we come up with a new invention, don't be sharing that with anybody. Because then they're going to want to come over here and take what we have. They knew how these Europeans are. So these people were hoarding information and resources. They weren't trying to share any of that. But see, they come up with a Catholic Church and we're all going to be one and we're all going to work together, which was never the intent. It was always to take everything from everyone else for themselves. All under the auspice of saying we're all together. We're all, going to work together, which has never been the case. It's always been about taking resources from others and keeping them for themselves. Enriching a few while taking everything else from the rest of the people. And that's exactly what's happened even with this society now. They say that, America is all about the land of the free, home of the brave. Everybody has an equal opportunity to make it and everything else. And we know that's not the case. They came and they took the resources from the Hebrews. They took the land. They took our labor. And they've benefited very few. So let's continue. So still, we glean from the ancient writers the following announcements. That ancient book entitled The Book of Wonders, ascribed to Aristotle, contains the following. Let's see here. When the Carthaginians, who were masters of the Western Ocean, and the Carthaginians are talking about the Phoenicians, okay, observed that many traders and other men attracted by the fertility of the soil and the pleasant climate had fixed their homes, they feared that knowledge of this land should reach other nations. A great concourse to it of men from the various lands of the earth would follow. That the conditions of life then so happy on that island would not only be unfavorably affected, but the Carthaginian Empire itself suffer injury, and the dominion of the sea be wrested from their hands. And so they issued a decree that no one, under penalty of death, should thereafter sail thither. This is talking about the Americas. They found the Americas. And it's talking about how great this land is. And we're going to go into that even a little bit more. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. And they were like, hey, we can't tell any of these other people. Because if they find out about these lands, they're going to come over here and they're going to destroy everything. They know the spirits of these other nations. And they know that they're going to come and try to take over everything, enrich themselves, and destroy the lands. So these Phoenicians, they call them Carthaginians, what do they say? They said, oh, hell no, don't let anybody else know. In fact, nobody's allowed to come back over here. You want to stay, stay. But if that, no one's allowed to come over here. Because if they find out about this land, they're going to rape, rob, murder, pillage everything. Because that's what they do. And this was happening way before Christ. That's what's going on right here. So all this garbage about, oh, we didn't know about these lands, and this is all, it's just, wow, we can't believe we found this, was all a lie. So again, they feared that the knowledge of this land should reach other nations. A great concourse, okay, to it of men from the various lands of the earth would follow. That the conditions of life then so happy on that island, talking about Turtle Island, would not only be unfavorably affected, but the Carthaginian Empire itself suffer injury, and the dominion of the sea be wrested from their hands. And so they issued a decree that no one under penalty of death should thereafter sail thither. So, and this talks about even when they did that with Britain and Ireland, when they thought that they were being followed to go to Britain and Ireland, they would shipwreck themselves on purpose in order so people wouldn't be able to find those lands either, the land of 10. This has been going on for a very long time. It says, merely with a claim that it refers to the continent of America, but for the purpose of showing how carefully the Phoenician people, whether Asiatic, Carthaginian, or Spanish, guarded from the great world the foreign discoveries which they had made, and where their kindred were enjoying prosperity, and to enable us to see how little likely their discoveries would be, okay, to come to the knowledge of the great mass of mankind. So they already knew about this land, and they were keeping it hidden because they already know. So we already saw what happened in 1492. Once the Most High, he made a covenant with us. I talked about that in the Book of Mormon. If you do what you're supposed to do, you follow the Most High like you're supposed to, I'm going to keep these people away from you. But we know that we didn't do that. So you talk about that in Luke 21. We talk about bringing these people over here and destroying our lands. Talk about also in Baruch 4, how he's bringing these horrible people over here to destroy our lands. That's exactly what he did. The Most High is a man of his word. He says, if you do this is what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. But it goes both ways. That sword cuts both ways. So if he said he's going to destroy us, for us not following the laws and not doing what we're supposed to do, and he did it, now what's he about to do with you? What's he about to do with the rest of the world? Genesis 15:13. After we serve our punishment, the ones who enslaved us are going to be punished. So yeah, we got ours, and you guys want to talk all this mess about us and how we're at the bottom and this, and that, and how horrible we've been and how all the things we've been going through. Well, now that's about to happen to you. Check out number 2. Let us look for a moment at some of the things which the ancient Greek and Latin authors have said, indicating their knowledge of the existence of a Western continent. Crates, a commentator on Homer, is quoted by authority of Strabo, a very learned author of the century before Christ, as saying that Homer means, in his account of the Western Ethiopians, the inhabitants of the Atlantis or the Hesperides, as the unknown world of the West was then variously called. Look at that right there. Homer means, in his account of the Western Ethiopians. These people knew that the so-called Americas was inhabited by so-called black people. Western Ethiopians. They were talking about how, they still always trying to equate all black people to Africa and all black people to Ethiopians. But hey, we all know exactly what's going on. Doesn't mean that it was all Hamites over here. Could there have been some? Of course there could have been some. It still could be a mix of people. But there were so-called, as you want to call them, black people here. And they already knew this. And this was before Christ. These people were aware of this. This is talking about the Greeks. You guys love the Greeks so much. And, they always love to talk about how the Greeks knew all this information and how smart they were and, how great they were with science and math, and which is actually a lie too. But hey, we're going to talk about that as well. But they knew about this Western continent. And they knew about these so-called Western Ethiopians who were here. So now when they got here, they had to lie and switch. And hey, we can't let them know that there's all these so-called black people here. So we're going to give them a whole new identity. You guys are all slaves. You guys all came from Africa. We're so great at sailing and everything else. We brought all of you, millions of you black people from Africa over here. And then you're going to give a new identity to the natives. It wasn't you black people that were already here. It's these other natives that were here. You see, but this is already telling you that they already knew about these Western Ethiopians on a Western continent. So they're already telling you. They knew about the lands over here in the Americas. They knew that it was inhabited by so-called black people. And they knew that they couldn't get over here. And the ones that did make it over here, they were like, hey, we can't let these people get over here because they're going to destroy everything. This is like a paradise. This is an absolute paradise over here. But they know the spirits of these other Gentiles. And if they get over here, they're going to screw it all up. They're going to screw it up for everybody. They're going to screw up the lands, and they're going to screw up, our sailing back, our business, our making our money coming back and forth. They're going to screw that up too. So they say, you know what? It's better just don't even go back. Don't even, if you want to stay, stay. Don't go back. Enjoy this paradise, but don't let the other nations know. Okay. Next, number 3, Pliny, also 6:31-36, locates the Western Ethiopians somewhere in the Atlantic. This shows that Crates and Pliny believed that the great poet Homer believed in the existence of a great continent on the western shore of the Atlantic Ocean. So you got different people referring to Homer. They love talking about Homer. They love bringing up all this stuff about these so-called Greeks, but I mean, they don't like bringing up this part about these Western Ethiopians and this great continent and this island in the West. They'd heard it. They'd heard about it. They knew about it. Why haven't we been told about this? Why has this information been hidden? Because you're going to see that they want to keep they've been pretty much given their narrative this whole time without anyone given an alternative. Now is the time for the alternative. Now is the time for the truth. That's why the Most High is raising us up as a nation to bring this truth. This is why we as a nation, need to come together and support the ones bringing out this truth. Because this is what we're supposed to be doing. We are the alternative to the lies. Us as a nation are the alternative. This is how you get blessed, by supporting the truth, supporting the ones the Most High has raised up to bring this truth. And you see how the other nations, what have they been having our people do, as well as them? Fight anybody that reads anything different. Fight anyone that talks about anything outside of what they've approved. If you come up with something that's different, you're an idiot. If you come up with, you're going off. You're just, you're making stuff up, because the only narrative is the one that they've put up. And that's true in society today. Oh, it's only the 80 books that the Roman church has set up. We're going to get into that too. It's only those books. That's all you can look at. Hey, the Irish are these white guys right here. These are the only Irish that we're talking about. There was nobody before them. There was no Iberno Celtics. There were no black Celts before. It's just these white Celtics that we get. Oh, there's only these British right here. The British, the Queen, the white people. Those are the only ones that have been here the whole time. You see that? I mean, they're everything. Oh, these are the Native Americans. There was nobody here before them. Even though they tell you that they didn't build all these pyramids, all these things. They tell you themselves they didn't build all this. In Peru, these people, the Peruvians down there, they don't tell you, the ones that are there today, they don't claim to have built all that stuff that's down there. So who built it? The Olmecs. Oh, well, we don't know if those are really black people. It might be, but we're not sure. But you see that's their narrative this whole time. It has not changed whatsoever. Whatever they say, that's it. If you come up with something else, you're going off. Get into the truth. Start reading other books other than the Bible, you're going off. Because they don't want you to get any understanding. See, I thought the Greeks didn't know about the so-called Americas, this Western continent. And you get over here and it's just like these light-skinned white Indians. That's all that you see. Even though back here they're talking about these Western Ethiopians, Western people, black people being on this Western continent. That's like a paradise. And then you go back to the scriptures. Noah gave who the best lands? Shem. So you talk about this land that's a Western in the West, that's inhabited by so-called black people. That's like a paradise. You start going to the scriptures. Who was given the paradise? Who was given the lands that were like, the best lands? Shem. That's why you gotta have a good understanding of the scriptures as well as the other books, so that when you start getting into the history, then it starts to all come together. Because if you listen to the Gentiles, it's never gonna be you, because your only history that you have is nothing but slavery. None of this stuff is yours. None of it was yours. Let's continue. Number 4, Plato says in the Timaeus chapter 6, the sea, or the Atlantic Ocean, was indeed navigable, and had an island fronting the mouth which you in your tongue call the Pillars of Hercules. And this island is larger than Libya and Asia put together. And there is a passage hence for travelers of that day to the rest of the islands, as well as from those islands, okay, to the whole opposite continent that surrounds the real sea. All right. Humboldt quotes that Anaxagoras, who was born 500 years BC and was a most eminent Greek philosopher, speaks of the grand division of the world beyond the ocean. Aelian, in his Vari Historiae, Book 3, Chapter 18, cites Theopompus, an eminent Greek historian, born about 300 years BC, as stating that the Meropians inhabit a large continent beyond the ocean, in comparison with which the known world was but an island. These guys are all over the place talking about the so-called Americas. These Greeks knew about all this. Why haven't we been told that? Because that didn't fit the narrative. Aristotle says in chapter 84 and 85, beyond the Pillars of Hercules, they say that an inhabited island was discovered by the Carthaginians, which abounded in forests and navigable rivers and fruits of all kinds, distant from the continent many days' sail. And while the Carthaginians were engaged in making voyages to this land, and some had even settled there on account of the fertility of the soil, the Senate decreed that no one thereafter, under penalty of death, should voyage thither. Aristotle was born 384 years before Christ. You see how deep Psalms 83 is? You see how everything has been a lie? They've done everything to hide our history. That's why you understand why they had to give us a totally different history. Nothing but slaves. That's all that we are. Nothing great. And the whole world has gone along with it. See, the vast majority of the world was inhabiting the three parts. Once they were given the okay and the approval to come to the fourth part, they had to take away our knowledge and understanding of who we are, where we came from, our languages, our connection to our power, in order for them to be able to come in and take over and say, hey, these lands are ours. We've taken them over. This is all. No one was here before. We killed everybody else off, so now these lands are ours. All the while we've been enslaved on our own lands. Diodorus of Sicily, who lived in the century preceding the Christian era, says in his book, they're giving you books that these guys have written on this. It's not just their opinions. They put these pen to paper. 5 through 19 and 20, that it was the Phoenicians instead of the Carthaginians who were cast upon a most fertile island opposite Africa, where the climate was that of perpetual spring, and that the land was the proper habitation for the gods rather than men. Most High gives us the best. Great weather, great soil, animals all kind, fruits of all kinds, lands fit for the gods that these other nations were not allowed to come to. But hey, everybody wants to keep talking about Africa. America's nothing. They were allowed to go to Africa, but they were not allowed to come to the Americas until we messed up. Most High had kept Turtle Island for us as a holy land, separate for the rest of the world. An habitation for the gods, perpetual spring. Look at that. So you think the Americas again is just nothing, just going to be destroyed just because the Gentiles got their opportunity to come over here, or the Most High is going to make it a holy land once again, just like he talks about in Joel 2, sweeping them off the lands, restoring the lands back to his people. That's the proper understanding of Joel 2. Making the nations have to pay for what they've done to our people. That goes back to, Enoch, the 70 shepherds, how they killed way more than they were supposed to. And the Most High has been keeping track. and going to make them have to pay for the ones that they killed over and above what he had approved. Look at that again. He speaks of the continent, however, at length and with great detail, enumerating its fertile valleys and navigable rivers, its rich and abundant fruits and supply of game, its valuable forests, and its genial climate. Pliny quotes Statius Sebosus in his volume 2, page 106, Bone as saying that the two Hesperides are 42 days' sail from the coast of Africa. You see this? Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg. So through you guys' support, I can pray you guys continuously support the channel and myself. I said we're gonna get even more of this history. I got a mountain of information that's gonna be coming out. All praises to the Most High. He's giving us back our history. He's just got to be, willing to step out of what we've been told, become like children once again, in order to be able to get our history back. Not wasting our time fighting with people, arguing with people over petty things. I don't have time for that. We have too much history that the Most High has given us back. Too much understanding that we're going to bring out in order for to be a light to the world, because the world's about to see how deep this rabbit hole goes, how much they've been lied to. Now, most love the lie, because the truth is hella scary. The truth that you've been destroying the Most High's chosen people. You've been destroying these people on their own lands. You've been taking advantage of them on their own lands, and everything's been hidden. And most of the people have not cared, but our Father cares. Our Father loves us, and He's given us back our knowledge and understanding, and it's about to grow exponentially now, because that's the times that we're in. The ones who want to stay ignorant, stay ignorant. The ones who want to stay and the 80 books and only pretty much absorb the history of our enemies who've done nothing but lie to us, go right ahead and do that. But we're going to continue forward, and we're going to be bringing out some things that most of us have never heard of before. I had never heard about the fact that these Greeks already knew hundreds and hundreds of years before Christ was even born about these lands in the West. So then that's got to make you think about when Jesus said that other sheep I have of this fold. If people are like, oh, they're going to go here, they knew about these other lands. They knew about these lands in the West. They knew about these lands in the West. They knew they were inhabited by so-called black people. But they want to make it seem like that was just something far-fetched, that the whole world just revolved around the Mediterranean. But we're going to get into that as well. Stay tuned. There's much more coming. All praise is to the Most High, Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother. Who was wisdom? Who was the Holy Spirit? Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. Shalom.